The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly in all directions, but today it was far from empty. 400 alien warships moved through the darkness like a swarm of metal locusts, their engines burning bright against the star-filled void. The galactic hegemony had assembled its most powerful armada in 3 centuries, and every species that mattered had contributed their finest vessels to this historic moment. Fleet. Admiral Theron adjusted his ceremonial armor as he gazed out at the magnificent sight. The Veldari Empire's flagship, Dominion's Edge, led the massive formation with pride. Around it, the sleek vessels of 6 other civilizations maintained perfect formation. The crystalline ships of the Praxis gleamed like floating diamonds, while the bio-organic hulls of the Keth pulsed with living energy. Each species brought their own unique technology, their own weapons, their own way of conducting war. The target was simple enough. A young species called humans had recently discovered faster-than-light travel and begun establishing colonies in the Outer Rim sectors. Their technology was primitive, their ships crude, and their understanding of galactic politics non-existent. The hegemony had tried peaceful contact first, as was proper. The humans had responded with demands for territorial recognition and trade agreements. They had the audacity to consider themselves equals to civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. Such arrogance could not be tolerated. The hegemony had made its decision. The humans would be given one final chance to submit to proper authority. If they refused, their colonies would be occupied, their ships confiscated, and their people relocated to suitable worlds, where they could be properly educated in their place within the galactic order. Captain Nira studied the tactical displays with professional interest. The human colony of New Terra lay just 3 light hours ahead. Long-range sensors showed a typical primitive settlement with orbital stations, mining platforms, and a small defensive fleet. Nothing that would pose any real threat to a proper military force. The humans had perhaps 30 ships total, most of them converted merchant vessels with basic weapons bolted to their hulls. "Admiral," called out Lieutenant Commander Rex from his sensor station, "we're detecting a single human vessel maintaining position near the planet's orbital defenses." His voice carried the slight amusement that came with observing the futile gestures of inferior species. "It appears to be significantly larger than their other ships." Theron nodded approvingly. "Excellent. They've decided to make a stand. That will make our demonstration more effective." He turned to address the bridge crew. "When word of this reaches other human colonies, they'll understand the futility of resistance. Sometimes a quick, decisive victory prevents longer conflicts." The alien fleet continued its approach, maintaining the traditional formation that had served the hegemony well for centuries. The massive siege platforms took the center position, their planet-cracking weapons powered and ready. Carrier ships flanked them, their fighter bays filled with thousands of small craft. Battle cruisers and destroyers formed the outer screen, ready to intercept any desperate attack the humans might attempt. Commander Bren reviewed the intelligence reports one final time. Human technology was laughably primitive by galactic standards. Their ships used crude fusion drives that limited them to a fraction of the speed achieved by proper antimatter propulsion. Their weapons were basic energy projectors and primitive kinetic launchers. Most amusing of all, they still used biological crews instead of the advanced AI systems that any civilized species had adopted centuries ago. "Sir," Rex reported, "the human vessel is not retreating. It's maintaining a defensive position directly between us and the planet." The sensor operator's tentacles twitched with what might have been confusion. "Its energy signature is ... unusual. I'm reading power levels." "That seem inconsistent with their known technology?" Theron dismissed the concern with a wave of his armored hand. "Probably some desperate overload of their reactor systems. Primitive species often resort to such tactics when faced with superior force. They'd rather die gloriously than submit to proper authority." He turned to his tactical officer. "Begin a full-spectrum analysis of their vessel. I want complete technical specifications for the archives." The scanning beams reached out across the void, invisible fingers of energy that would penetrate every layer of the human ship's hull. It was standard procedure before any engagement. The hegemony prided itself on maintaining complete records of every species they encountered. Every technology they absorbed, every world they brought under proper management. What came back in? Those first few moments made no sense at all. The human ship was enormous, nearly 4 kilometers in length. That alone wasn't particularly impressive since the hegemony had ships twice that size. But the composition readings were impossible. The whole material showed molecular structures that shouldn't exist, alloys that combined elements in ways that defied known physics. "Run the scan again," Theron ordered, his confidence beginning to waver. "There must be some error in the equipment." Rex's tentacles moved frantically over his controls. "Sir, I've run it 17 times. The readings are consistent." His voice carried a note of concern that hadn't been there moments before. "The power output from their reactor is reading at levels that would require a containment system the size of a moon." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Every species in the galaxy had spent centuries trying to improve their reactor technology. The theoretical limits were well understood, and the humans appeared to be operating far beyond them. Either their sensors were malfunctioning, or they had encountered something that shouldn't exist. Theron stared at the tactical display showing the single human ship. It hung in space like a dark prophecy, its hull reflecting starlight in ways that seemed somehow wrong. For the first time in his long military career, he felt a cold touch of uncertainty. The humans were supposed to be primitives, barely capable of interstellar travel. They weren't supposed to have technology that surpassed the combined knowledge of 7 galactic civilizations. "Continue the approach," he ordered, his voice steady despite his growing doubts. "Maintain formation and prepare for engagement protocols? Whatever they're doing, it's probably some form of deception. No species achieves technological superiority overnight. But as the hegemony fleet drew closer to the human ship, more impossible readings flooded the sensors. Weapon systems that operated on principles their scientists didn't recognize. Defensive systems that seemed to bend space itself. And most disturbing of all, the growing certainty that the humans had been expecting them. The galaxy was about to learn a very hard lesson about the species they had dismissed as primitive. In the silence of space, the human dreadnought waited with the patience of a predator that knew its prey was walking into the perfect trap. Deep within the sensor arrays of the Dominion's edge, quantum processors worked frantically to make sense of the impossible data streaming in from the human vessel. Lieutenant Commander Rex had been analyzing alien technology for 15 years, and he had never seen readings like these. His specialized equipment, designed to penetrate the deepest secrets of any known civilization, was returning results that made no logical sense. The human ship designated UES Retribution appeared to be constructed from materials that shouldn't exist in normal space. The hull showed traces of exotic matter that required particle accelerators the size of planets to create, yet somehow the humans had formed it into armor plating. The molecular structure was perfectly stable, held together by forces that the hegemony's greatest scientists had only theorized about in their most advanced research papers. "This is impossible," Rex muttered, his tentacles dancing across the control surfaces as he ran another deep scan. "The energy readings are off the scale. Their reactor is showing output levels that would require antimatter containment fields powered by the gravitational force of a collapsing star." Commander Bren moved to stand beside him, her scaled skin shifting color with concern. Could they be using some form of holographic projection? Making their ship appear more advanced than it actually is. Rex shook his head, his large eyes reflecting the dancing lights of his display screens. "No, ma'am. These readings are coming from multiple sensor types across the electromagnetic spectrum. Holographic technology can't fool gravimetric sensors, and the spatial distortion around their vessel is definitely real." The tactical analysis continued to reveal more disturbing information. The human ship's weapon systems were unlike anything in the hegemony's vast database. What appeared to be kinetic accelerators showed magnetic field strengths that could propel projectiles at significant percentages of light speed. The focusing crystals for their energy weapons were the size of buildings, suggesting power levels. That could crack planetary crusts? Sir, Rex called out to Fleet Admiral Theron, I'm detecting what appears to be a distributed AI network throughout their vessel. The processing power is several orders of magnitude beyond our most advanced systems. It's as if their entire ship is one massive thinking machine. Theron's armored form remained rigid as he processed this information. Every revelation about the human vessel challenged everything the hegemony believed about technological development. Species were supposed to advance gradually, building upon the knowledge of their predecessors. They didn't simply appear with technology that surpassed civilizations millions of years older. Perhaps they discovered some ancient technology, suggested Commander Bren, her voice hopeful. The galaxy is full of ruins from dead civilizations. Maybe the humans found something and learned to use it without understanding it. The chief science officer, a crystalline being named Quartz, spoke up from his position at the analysis station. The technology shows clear signs of iterative development. These aren't copied alien systems. Someone designed and built this vessel, using principles that are completely foreign to our understanding of physics. Rex's display suddenly lit up with new data as the human ship's power systems underwent what appeared to be a routine calibration. The energy spike was so massive that it briefly overloaded the hegemony's sensors. When the readings stabilized, they showed a vessel that was essentially a mobile star, contained within a hull that somehow managed to hold forces that should have torn it apart instantly. They're not just advanced, Rex whispered, his voice filled with growing dread. They're operating on physical principles we don't even understand. Look at these gravitational readings. They're somehow manipulating space-time itself to maintain structural integrity. The implications were staggering. If the humans possessed technology that could manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe, then every assumption about the coming battle was wrong. The hegemony's numerical advantage meant nothing if their weapons couldn't penetrate defenses that operated outside known physics. Theron ordered a complete halt to the fleet's advance while his science team worked frantically to understand what they were facing. The massive armada hung in space like a collection of toys, their crews suddenly aware that they might have stumbled into something far beyond their comprehension. Run a full spectral analysis of their hull composition, Theron ordered. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with before we proceed. The results were even more disturbing than the power readings. The human vessel's outer hull appeared to be composed of neutronium held in a crystalline matrix, a material so dense that a handful would weigh as much as a mountain. The technology required to work with such substances was beyond anything the hegemony had ever developed. Sir, Quartz reported, his crystalline form resonating with nervous energy, I'm detecting what appears to be a space-time distortion field surrounding their vessel. It's subtle, but it's there. They're somehow creating a bubble of altered physics around their ship. Rex looked up from his station, his large eyes wide with realization. That's how they're maintaining structural integrity. They're not just building advanced ships. They're changing the laws of physics in the immediate area around their vessel. The bridge fell silent as the full implications sank in. The humans weren't just more advanced than expected. They had achieved a level of technological mastery that bordered on the divine. They were manipulating the fundamental forces of reality itself, bending the universe to their will through sheer technological superiority. Admiral, Rex said quietly, I'm detecting additional signatures in the surrounding space. Subtle distortions that suggest other vessels operating under some form of advanced stealth technology. Theron felt his confidence crumble completely. The single human ship might not be alone. If they possessed stealth technology as advanced as their other systems, the entire hegemony fleet could be walking into a trap that they wouldn't see coming until it was too late. Continue monitoring, he ordered, his voice steady despite his growing fear. And prepare a full report for transmission. To Hegemony Command, they need to know what we're facing. As the alien fleet hung in space, their sensors working overtime to understand the impossible vessel before them, the human Dreadnought, waited with the patience of a predator that knew its prey was beginning to understand the true nature of the trap they had walked into. The command center of the UES Retribution hummed with quiet efficiency as 2,000 crew members prepared for what they all knew was coming. Every station was manned, every system checked and rechecked, every weapon loaded and ready. The massive Dreadnought had been designed for one purpose, and today it would fulfill that purpose with the precision that only humanity could achieve. Stone reviewed the tactical display one final time, his weathered face showing no emotion as he studied the alien formation. 400 ships arranged in the classic hegemony attack pattern, exactly as the intelligence reports had predicted. The aliens were predictable, following the same military doctrines they had used for centuries. Humanity had studied every battle, every tactic, every weakness in their approach to warfare. Oracle, Stone said quietly, addressing the ship's artificial intelligence, confirm status of all weapon systems. The AIS voice filled the command center with calm authority. All systems are operating at optimal parameters. Main kinetic cannon is loaded and ready. Point defense grids are active. Shield generators are at maximum output. The ship is ready for combat operations. Stone nodded, his eyes never leaving the tactical display. The alien fleet had stopped their advance and was conducting detailed scans of his vessel. He could feel their sensors probing every inch of the Retribution's hull, trying to understand what they were facing. Let them look. They would find exactly what humanity wanted them to find. Communication Officer Blake, Stone said, open a channel to the alien fleet. All frequencies, all languages in our database. The young officer's fingers moved across her console with practiced efficiency. Channel open, sir. Broadcasting on 17 different frequencies in their native languages. Stone stood and walked to the center of the command center, his presence commanding the attention of every crew member. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of authority that came from years of preparation for this moment. Alien vessels, this is Robert Stone, commanding officer of the United Earth Space Navy vessel Retribution. You are operating in human-controlled space without authorization? I formally request that you withdraw your forces immediately and return to your own territory. The response came quickly, transmitted on multiple channels simultaneously. Fleet. Admiral Theron's voice carried the arrogance of someone who had never faced real opposition. Human vessel, you are outnumbered 400 to 1. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Your species will be relocated to appropriate worlds where you can be properly educated in your place within the galactic order. Stone allowed himself a small smile. The aliens were following the script perfectly. He had studied their psychology, their military doctrine, their cultural assumptions about warfare. They believed that numerical superiority guaranteed victory. They had never faced an enemy that turned their own strengths against them. Alien Commander, Stone replied, his voice remaining calm and professional. You have been warned. You have 30 seconds to begin your withdrawal from this system. If you remain, we will interpret your continued presence as an act of war. The alien communication channels erupted with what could only be described as laughter. Stone could hear multiple species making jokes about human arrogance, placing bets on how quickly they could disable his ship. Some alien commanders were already discussing which of their weapons would be most effective. Against primitive human technology, Oracle's voice spoke privately to Stone through his neural interface. Sir, the alien fleet is beginning to spread into attack formation. Their energy weapons are powering up and they're launching fighter squadrons. Stone watched the tactical display as hundreds of small craft poured out of the alien carrier ships. The fighters moved in perfect formation, their pilots confident in their superior numbers and technology. They had no idea what they were flying into. Time, Stone said quietly. 30 seconds have elapsed, Oracle confirmed. Stone took a deep breath and gave the order that would change the course of galactic history. Oracle, implement Protocol 7. Show them what humanity has learned about war. The Retribution's engines came online with a surge of power that sent gravitational waves rippling through space. The massive Dreadnought accelerated from a standstill to combat velocity in less than 3 seconds, its inertial dampeners preventing the crew from being crushed by forces that would have liquefied any normal life form. Oracle selected the first target with the cold calculation that only an artificial intelligence could achieve. A heavy cruiser positioned at the edge of the alien formation, its crew probably still laughing about human primitiveness. The main kinetic cannon aligned with mechanical precision, its magnetic accelerator fields building to unimaginable strength. Stone watched the tactical display with professional interest as the tungsten carbide projectile was accelerated to 40% of light speed. The alien vessel never saw it coming. One moment it was a functioning warship with 3,000 crew members. The next moment it was an expanding cloud of superheated plasma. The kinetic energy release created a brief artificial star that illuminated the entire alien fleet. For a few seconds, the space around New Terra was brighter than the system's primary sun. When the light faded, there was nothing left of the alien cruiser except a rapidly expanding shell of ionized gas. "Alien Commander," Stone said, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent communication channels. "That was a demonstration. You have lost one heavy cruiser. We have not yet begun to fight. This is your final opportunity to withdraw." The alien response was immediate and predictable. 3 battleships opened fire simultaneously, their most powerful weapons lashing out at the human Dreadnought. Plasma beams that could melt through planetary crust struck the Retribution's shields and simply disappeared, their energy absorbed and dissipated by crystalline deflector arrays that operated on principles the aliens couldn't understand. Oracle's point defense systems came online as the first wave of alien fighters closed to attack range. Thousands of small craft swarmed toward the human vessel, their pilots expecting to overwhelm the single ship through sheer numbers. Instead, they flew into a killing field that had been designed by a species that understood warfare at a fundamental level. Laser grids tracked and eliminated targets faster than the alien pilots could react. Each beam was precisely calibrated to cause maximum damage with minimum energy expenditure. In less than 90 seconds, over 300 fighters had been reduced to expanding clouds of debris. Stone opened the communication channel one final time. "Alien fleet, you came here expecting to face primitives. Instead, you have found humanity. We are not your subjects. We are not your equals. We are your superiors in every way that matters. Choose quickly because our patience has limits." The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time in centuries, a hegemony fleet had encountered something that could destroy them completely. The destruction of the alien cruiser had been just the beginning. As the expanding cloud of plasma cooled in the vacuum of space, the Retribution began its true demonstration of human military capability. What followed would be remembered as the moment when the galaxy learned that some species were born to wage war. Oracle's tactical systems identified the next phase of the demonstration with mechanical precision. The alien fleet was beginning to recover from their initial shock, and several battleships were moving to attack positions. Their crews believed they had witnessed a lucky shot, a single powerful weapon that would surely be overwhelmed by concentrated fire from multiple vessels. Stone watched the tactical display with the calm focus of a predator. The aliens were reacting exactly as human military doctrine had predicted. They were falling into the same patterns that had made them successful against every other species they had encountered. But humanity had studied those patterns, analyzed them, and developed counters for every possible response. "Oracle, demonstrate our defensive capabilities," Stone ordered. "Select 3 battleships for engagement." The AI's response was immediate, selecting targets based on threat assessment and tactical positioning. Battleships Dominion's Fist, Eternal Glory, and Stellar Hammer have been designated for defensive demonstration. The 3 alien vessels opened fire simultaneously, their crews confident that massed firepower would succeed where individual attacks had failed. Plasma cannons that could melt through planetary crust unleashed their fury at the human Dreadnought. Energy beams that had reduced entire cities to ash converged on the Retribution's hull. The human ship's shields absorbed the assault without even flickering. The crystalline deflector arrays that surrounded the vessel operated on principles that the aliens couldn't comprehend. They didn't simply block incoming energy, they redirected it, stored it, and used it to strengthen the ship's own power systems. Every attack made the Retribution stronger. Commander Bren watched from the bridge of the Dominion's edge as their most powerful weapons proved completely ineffective. The readings her sensors were providing made no sense according to everything the hegemony understood about defensive technology. The human ship wasn't just surviving their attacks, it was feeding off them. "Sir," she reported to Admiral Theron, her voice tight with growing fear, "our weapons are having no effect. If anything, their defensive systems appear to be growing, stronger with each hit." Theron's armored form remained rigid as he processed this information. Every assumption about the coming battle was proving wrong. The humans weren't just more advanced than expected, they were operating on principles that turned conventional warfare into a futile exercise. The Retribution's next demonstration came as alien fighter squadrons swarmed toward the human vessel. Thousands of small craft launched from carrier ships, their pilots expecting to overwhelm the single ship through sheer numbers. The tactic had worked against every other species in the galaxy. It would prove useless against humanity, oracles. Point defense systems activated with lethal efficiency. The human ship bristled with laser arrays that could track and engage multiple targets simultaneously. Each beam was precisely calibrated to cause maximum damage with minimum energy expenditure. The technology was so advanced that it could calculate the optimal strike point for each target while engaging hundreds of them at once. The alien fighters flew into a killing field that had been designed by a species that understood warfare at a fundamental level. Their pilots were skilled, their ships were fast, and their weapons were powerful. None of it mattered against point defense systems that could track objects moving at 90% of light speed. Rex watched in horror as his sensors recorded the systematic destruction of the fighter squadrons. The human weapon systems were so fast that they appeared to be firing at empty space, only for alien fighters to fly into the beams and explode. It was as if the human AI could predict where each target would be before the pilots themselves knew. 300 fighters destroyed, Rex reported, his voice hollow with disbelief. Time to engagement, 97 seconds. Time to complete destruction, 97 seconds? The precision was inhuman. No biological crew could have achieved such accuracy, such timing, such perfect coordination between multiple weapon systems. The humans had created artificial intelligences that could conduct warfare with mathematical perfection. Stone opened the communication channel again, his voice carrying across the increasingly desperate alien fleet. "Alien commanders, you have now witnessed our defensive capabilities and our point defense systems. Your weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Your fighters cannot approach our vessel. This is your final warning." The response came from multiple alien commanders simultaneously, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of threats and demands. Some called for immediate withdrawal, others demanded continued attacks, and a few suggested trying to negotiate. The unity of the hegemony fleet was beginning to crack under the pressure of facing something they couldn't understand. Oracle's voice filled the Retribution's command center with calm analysis. "Sir, the alien fleet is showing signs of command breakdown. Multiple conflicting orders are being transmitted on their tactical channels. Several vessels are beginning to break formation." Stone nodded, his eyes never leaving the tactical display. The demonstration was working exactly as planned. The aliens were beginning to understand that they weren't facing a primitive species with crude weapons. They were facing a military civilization that had turned warfare into a science. "Oracle, prepare for the final phase of the demonstration," Stone ordered. "Show them what happens when humanity decides to stop playing defense." The Retribution's main offensive systems came online with a surge of power that sent gravitational waves rippling through space. The massive Dreadnought carried weapons that operated on principles the aliens couldn't comprehend. They were about to witness the true meaning of human technological superiority. What followed would be remembered as the moment when the galaxy learned that some species were born to wage war, and humanity was the apex predator of the universe. The first sign of complete system failure came when the Dominion's Edge began receiving contradictory orders from multiple fleet commanders simultaneously. Admiral Theron watched in growing horror as his carefully coordinated armada descended into chaos. Species that had worked together for centuries were now arguing over communication channels, each blaming the others for the tactical disaster unfolding before them. Hyperspace signatures began appearing throughout the system as more human vessels emerged from faster-than-light travel. The Retribution hadn't been alone after all. It had been the vanguard of a fleet that included ships even larger than the massive Dreadnought. Each new arrival carried the same impossible technology, the same reality-defying weapons, the same overwhelming superiority. Captain Nira stared at her tactical displays as the true scope of the trap became clear. The humans hadn't simply responded to the hegemony's attack. They had been waiting for it. Every move the alien fleet had made had been anticipated, predicted, and countered before it was even attempted. "Sir," Rex reported, his voice breaking with fear, "I'm detecting additional human fleets in adjacent sectors. They've surrounded us completely." We walked into a carefully prepared killing field. The implications were staggering. The humans hadn't just achieved technological superiority, they had achieved strategic superiority as well. They understood the hegemony's military doctrine better than the aliens understood it themselves. Every assumption about human primitiveness had been wrong. Theron realized that his 400 ships weren't facing a desperate colonial defense. They were facing a military civilization that had been preparing for galactic war for decades. The humans had studied every battle, every tactic, every weakness in hegemony strategy. They had built their entire space fleet around the specific goal of defeating the established galactic powers. "Communication from the human fleet," the bridge officer reported, his crystalline form resonating with panic. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies." Stone's voice filled the alien communication channels with calm authority. "Hegemony fleet, you came here expecting to conquer primitives. Instead, you have found a species that has spent centuries perfecting the art of warfare. We know your tactics, your weapons, your strengths, and your weaknesses. We have prepared for this moment." The human fleet moved into final attack formation with a precision that the aliens had never witnessed. Each ship took its position with mathematical accuracy, their movements coordinated by artificial intelligences that could calculate thousands of variables simultaneously. The formation allowed overlapping fields of fire while maintaining perfect defensive coverage. Commander Bren watched the tactical display with growing despair as the human ships demonstrated coordination that bordered on the supernatural. Their movement patterns were too perfect, their timing too precise, their formations too advanced. They were facing a level of military sophistication that the hegemony had never encountered. "Sir," she reported to Theron, "they're not just advanced. They're operating as a single entity. Their ships are coordinated by some form of networked intelligence that allows instantaneous communication and tactical adjustment." The alien fleet began to disintegrate as individual ship commanders made their own decisions about survival. The disciplined formation that had been the hegemony's strength for centuries became a liability as ships collided with each other in their desperate attempts to find escape routes. Oracle's voice reached Stone through his neural interface. "Sir, the alien fleet is attempting to scatter. Several vessels are trying to break through our outer formation. Request permission to demonstrate our pursuit capabilities." Stone considered the request for a moment. The aliens needed to understand that retreat was only possible if humanity allowed it. They needed to learn that their survival depended entirely on human mercy. "Permission granted," Stone replied. "Select the fastest fleeing vessel and demonstrate our pursuit systems." A sleek Praxis scout ship had broken from the main formation and was accelerating toward the edge of the system at maximum velocity. Its crystalline hull was designed for speed, and under normal circumstances, it would have been impossible to catch. But these weren't normal circumstances. The human pursuit ship that responded to Oracle's call was smaller than the Retribution but moved with impossible speed. Its engines created space-time distortions that allowed it to exceed the theoretical limits of faster-than-light travel. The alien scout was overtaken within minutes, its advanced propulsion systems proving inadequate against human pursuit technology. The demonstration was brief but effective. The human vessel disabled the alien scout with surgical precision, its weapon systems neutralizing the ship's engines without destroying it. The message was clear: escape was impossible unless humanity chose to allow it. Hegemony Fleet, Stone's voice carried across all communication channels. You have two choices. You can continue to resist and face complete annihilation, or you can begin an immediate withdrawal from human space. Choose quickly. Our patience has limits. The response came from multiple alien commanders simultaneously, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of surrender requests and retreat authorizations. The mighty hegemony armada that had approached with such confidence was now begging for permission to leave. Theron's own voice joined the chorus of defeat. Human Commander, the hegemony fleet requests permission to withdraw from this system. We acknowledge your territorial claims and will report to our superiors that peaceful coexistence is preferable to continued hostilities. Stone allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The demonstration had worked perfectly. The aliens would return to their homeworlds with stories of human superiority that would spread throughout the galaxy. Future conflicts would be avoided through reputation rather than actual warfare. Permission granted, Stone replied. You have 1 hour to clear human space. Any vessel that remains after that time will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. The alien fleet began its retreat with a haste that bordered on panic. Ships that had approached in perfect formation now fled in complete disorder, their crews desperate to escape before the humans changed their minds. The most powerful armada in hegemony history was conducting the most shameful retreat in galactic memory. As the last alien vessel disappeared into hyperspace, Stone turned to address his crew. All stations, stand down from combat alert. Mission accomplished. He looked out at the stars that now belonged to humanity. Today we taught the galaxy that some species are born to rule and others are born to serve. The question is no longer whether humanity will take its place among the galactic powers. The question is whether the galaxy will survive humanity's rise to dominance. The age of human supremacy had begun, and the universe would never be the same.